What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Aftersound here, bringing you Splinterland's content daily. We also stream over on Twitch at This Is Aftersound, so come by and say hello. All right, you know me, I love math. This is going to be another math-based video. So I was just playing around with some numbers, and I wanted to see what is the worst possible scenario, right? Of course, things could always get worse. But to me, in my opinion, what is the worst possible scenario for holding DEC through the remainder of the airdrop, right? Because I keep talking about there being a substantial risk. So why not actually put some numbers here and see what the most catastrophic situation could be? Obviously, the most catastrophic situation is everything goes to zero, but I don't believe that's going to happen, and so I don't want to do that. So we're going to go with a step above that. Okay, now, right now, my example is usually $100, 100 US dollars. That's going to get you roughly 30,000 airdrop points, or about 30,000 DEC. So what you're seeing here is that $100 gets you 30,000 DEC if you were to put that in today. And if you were to have this for the remainder of the airdrop, which is another 164 days, at the end of it, you would walk out with $426. I'm sorry, 426 SPS, which at the current price is $62. Now, here are the two factors that I want to consider when looking at the most extreme catastrophic scenario. The first, DEC goes back to its peg. Now, DEC can technically go below its peg, but I do believe that if DEC were to go back to its peg, it would stabilize relatively quickly, because I think a lot of people would see some opportunity there. It'd be a good time to go in and level up potential buildings for land or use them for your guild or whatever the case is. So I don't see... while I do see us potentially going under the peg once the airdrop is over, if there's nothing else applied to DEC, of course, which it sounds more and more like will be the case. The team wants to see things how things shake out. So I'm going to say that the worst case scenario for DEC, if you're willing to hold a little bit past the airdrop and let things stabilize, will probably be close to the peg. So that'll be 0.001, which would bring your $100 that you're spending today down to $30. Right? Because $100 times the, 30,000 DEC that you purchased today for $100 is going to be multiplied by 0.001. So it's only going to get you $30. So you're down 70% there. But you are up with the amount of SPS that you've gained. So the way we calculate that, and the second scenario that I want to show, or second part of the scenario, with first being DEC going back to its peg, SPS to me has a floor price of 2 cents. And I'm just going to round up to 2 cents because the private sale, the private investors, were the ones that put this out at, were the ones who were able to buy it at 1.8 cents. So I personally can't see SPS dropping that far down. I really do feel like a lot of the larger players, I mean, I know that I would be wanting to scoop up as much SPS. I mean, I'm trying to scoop up as much SPS as possible, but if it were to drop down into the single digits and potentially get even like below 5 cents, I don't know that, I mean, I just can't, I can see the buy pressure being very, very strong around that point. But for this catastrophic scenario, I'm going to say we're going to go down to 2 cents. So where does that leave us? At the end of the 164 days, we do have 426 SPS tokens, right? And we're going to multiply that by 0.02. So that's $8.52. Add that to the $30 that we have, and that brings us to a grand total of 38.52. Now, here is where things get a little shaky, right? Because now we're going to start to make some assumptions. If I just look at this 38.52, that would mean that your total risk, if everything were to go wrong, has a potential floor of negative 60%. That's actually not as bad as I thought it would be. I'm sure a lot of people are going to look at that and be like, oh my God, that sucks. Especially when you can get, there's so many positive things happening all over the crypto and the gaming space. That being said, I don't know that negative 60%, one, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. And number two, I don't think that it would actually get there. Again, I'm talking catastrophic. And the only level beyond catastrophic is just nuclear or whatever you want to call it, post-apocalyptic, where everything literally goes to zero. So I don't think that we're going to go there. I don't even think that we're going to get to the catastrophic part. So if your risk here is negative 60%, and keep in mind, like I said, this is where things get dicey because you will be earning SPS at this point, and unless you are liquidating that SPS and taking it completely off the table, you could be staking that SPS for an additional 30%. So that could potentially get you something, and that will compound over time. Or you could be selling it for more DEC and getting more airdrop points out of it. Who knows? However you want to tackle that is up to you. But that's why I'm saying this roughly negative 60% here is the worst case scenario, right? Not post-apocalyptic, but catastrophic. Now, here's the thing. Let's say SPS still drops, but instead of dropping to 4 cents, 2 cents goes up to like 4 cents or 6 cents. That's going to add like another, $8.50 onto here. So at 4 cents, you're down 53%. At 6 cents, you are down... let's add another 850. So at 6 cents, you're down 45%, right? I'm taking the 100 that you started with minus whatever your ending price is, considering that DEC is still at the peg, right? And if SPS drops down to 8 cents, right? We're going to add another. Then your risk is only 35% loss. Now, you still own the tokens, right? You still own the tokens at 426 of them through the end of the airdrop. Granted, the airdrop points will continue to get diluted, so something else to keep in mind, and something else that's very hard to quantify here. But as we're seeing it right now, that's where it's at, really. Now, if SPS were to stay the same, this is the last interesting point that I'm going to bring up. If SPS were to stay the same, $30 for DEC going back to its peg, plus your $62 that you would get with SPS staying at 14.5 cents, actually is an 8% loss, right? So if you're doing this, if you're making this play, it's because you believe in the long-term value of SPS. Otherwise, if you don't, to me, at this point, even 8% risk of loss is too high unless you have conviction in the project. There's way too many other ways to make money out there, and better projects and better APRs and all this if you're going to take that kind of risk. So if you're doing this, right, and SPS stays at the same price and DEC drops all the way down, then there is still a risk of coming away at the end of the airdrop once DEC stabilizes. And if SPS is still kind of in a consolidation mode, that you would be down 8%. So just things to keep in mind as you're going through this. Again, I know there's a lot. I've been talking a lot about DEC because I frankly am fascinated with what they're going to do. I'm intrigued. I'm fascinated. I'm very unsure and uncertain about what they are going to do with this token moving forward. But that being said, we can kind of speculate on at least where the potential returns will be. Now, I don't know what can be done with DEC. I've already given, in previous videos, I've already talked about what I think DEC can be used for in the future, mainly when it comes to land, and then how you can save DEC by adding some utility to it. The only thing there, and that's randomly just coming to my mind at this moment, is that if DEC continues to increase in price, a lot of the functions that are only available to purchase with DEC, now Riftwatch is no longer part of that mix, but guilds, for example, and maybe land or whatever the case, whatever ends up happening with land, if DEC continues to go up, then that makes it much more expensive. And one of the things that I've heard Aggroed say, or the developers say, is that they don't want to just circle back and make things cheap for everybody, because other folks spent money when DEC was down near its peg, and it would be unfair to them for us to reduce the amount of DEC required or make it market value or something like that. Could that still change? Yes, and I totally understand where Aggroed is coming from, because like if you were a new or an older player to the game and you got in and you spent all this money on DEC at that point, and you spent not dollars, but if you spent like tens of thousands of DEC leveling things up, then that was one of the benefits of being early. And if all of a sudden people come in now, and because DEC is like 3-4x its peg, people only need to spend, 1/3 of the price, or not 1/3 of the DEC amount. Again, I'm talking about the DEC amount, not the US dollar equivalent. Then I can understand there being a lot of frustration and them wanting to protect the value that the older players had put into this. So it's going to be an interesting situation to see how it plays out. We have 164 days, and I'm sure it'll get very interesting before that 164th day arrives. So just wanted to share those numbers with you, what I was going through, and hopefully that made sense. Again, this is definitely a risk, but again, there's everything is a risk to a certain extent, but I wanted to share some tangible numbers with you instead of just being the guy that's always calling out, hey, there's a risk of loss, there's a risk of loss. Now we have some actual numbers, and hopefully this is helpful for you to make the best decision for you. Again, none of this is financial advice, so take it all with a grain of salt, do your own research, blah, 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 all that fun stuff. I'm not a financial advisor, I'm a musician, and I love working with numbers. So that is my qualifications, or those are my qualifications, and I'm going to leave it at that. So hopefully you guys make the right decision for you, your families, for everything, and for your in-game experience. All right, guys, have an amazing rest of your day. I will catch you all in the next video, and I will see you around the game. Take care.